I have been asking severally on this channel, is there anyone who can face William Samoei Ruto and tell him, King, you are naked? Because many a times we have realized that even when the king is naked, all the people around him usually tell him that, King, you are dressed in your Sunday best. But in light of what happened to Raila Odinga in Addis Ababa, I want to change that question. Is there anyone who can face Raila Odinga and tell him, Right Honorable Raila Odinga, something is wrong. You have deviated from what people knew you for. I don't think whether there is anyone among the politicians around Raila Odinga, because even a newborn can understand that Raila's dalliance with William Ruto has destroyed him completely. William Ruto has successfully deconstructed Raila's political legacy that he built for years. And when you listen to politicians around him, they have reduced the politics around Raila Odinga to be a fight between Luos and Kikuyus. That is the reality. Anytime something happens, they create a narrative. For Raila to support William Ruto, they created a narrative that, Gachagua wanted to topple this government, and had it been left, Kenya would have gone the Somali way. I don't know. Gachagua was going to use a constitutional interpretation that when William Ruto goes, then he's the deputy president. And that narrative has sunk to the followers of Raila Odinga. Right now, after Raila was defeated in Ethiopia in his bid to capture the African Union Commission, seat, there is a narrative that is being crafted. And what is the narrative? That Uhuru went there overnight and he held meetings with several heads of states, and that is why they did not vote for Raila Odinga. You see, one day William Samoei Ruto said that tuko na upungufu wa wajinga, that we have got a shortage of imbeciles in the country. Because when one tells us that Raila has been flying using taxpayers' money with a team, a secretariat that was being, maintained by taxpayers' money, he's been visiting one African country to the other. And then they want to convince us that all the gains that Raila made while traveling and flying around, was eroded by a night meeting by Uhuru Kenyatta. It is unacceptable, and we need to tell the truth. And moving forward, you will see and you will hear that narrative, because they have to look for someone to blame. Had Rigathi Gachagua still been in government, they would have laid all the blame on him. But ladies and gentlemen, I found a person who is injecting, right now that is the language that they're using, injecting without fear, and is telling Raila Odinga, you lost it the moment you went in bed with the UDA, the moment you joined Ruto. You lost it, and you've lost ground, and you have lost the people who believed in you. I'm talking about none other than Martin Oloo, a lawyer, a political scientist, a man who is not vying for any position, a man who does not need any direct nomination, and therefore he can tell Raila the truth, because many a times those people who are around, the politicians who are around Raila, cannot tell him the truth, because ukimwambia na kesho unataka ticket, utaenda wapi? And so Martin Oloo is saying something that if Raila wants to come back to redeem himself, then he needs to get quiet and decide that he needs to decide to take a paradigm shift. because you cannot continue. In fact, Martin Luther puts it this way: you cannot lose locally, lose at the African front, and then you still want more. Kindly just listen to Martin Luther.
Landscape ahead of the 2027 elections.
I don't think it signals a shift in the Kenya's political landscape, but it should signal a shift in Baba's politics. I think it is it. You cannot be losing in Kenya, losing in Africa, and still wanting more. It's time for him to call off and then to say, I want to change my role. So it's him to shift. Otherwise, for Kenya's politics shifted. The moment Baba went to start working with the Kenya Kwanza, Kenya's politics shifted. The youth, the progressives decided that these people are just about themselves. So when Baba comes back, I would tell him to come. I'm sure that he'll be welcomed very well, but he should now take time and relax, like all elders at 80.
Do you think that this loss diminishes his political capacity domestically?
Domestically, Baba began to erode his capacity the moment he began to give himself the opportunity of being led, being used, or being promised. So the moment you are, being presented as a candidate of some people, and particularly in this respect, I think there are a number of people that have since shifted from believing that he had what it took to liberate people. I think he has proved again that no, it's about his interests.
Right. Professor Ketch, earlier today I spoke to the head of the National Communications Center, Charles Owino, and he alluded...
I think that is the bitter truth that Raila needs. Raila needs such people, not the sycophants who are around him. Do you like the way Martin Oloo puts it? He's injecting. And I think Raila needs to sit back and soul search. I'm saying that William Ruto has successfully destroyed Raila's political legacy. William Ruto convinced Raila to join him at a time when Gen Zs had cornered him. In fact, Raila would have just sat back and watched. Because if there is one thing that I want to tell you, there was no way Kenyans were going to remove Ruto from power and allow Rigathi Gachagua. It couldn't have happened, I'm telling you. Revolutions, during times of revolutions, the constitution is always suspended. In that mood, when people were running around, there was no way Rigathi would have come and tell people that, according to the constitution, people wanted the entire UDA government out. They had said they never wanted the cabinet. In fact, as a matter of fact, William Ruto, dissolved that cabinet. They told William Ruto, we don't want the position of, you remember this position where people like Kidero, Millicent Omanga, I don't know, Tumbi had been appointed. They said, we don't want, and William Ruto had to obey. So this narrative that, Gachagua, even if that was in his mind, he would have been very much disappointed because Kenyans were not going to accept. So Raila joined this government. And people had known Raila for a man who speaks, a man who has been, putting governments to pressure. Raila just gave us dossiers about the oil-to-oil deal, about the exam deal and how money had exchanged hands, how corruption is eating into our education. And then before you know it, he was in bed. And Martin Oloo is telling him he lost them long time ago. The Kenyan politics, changed, the narrative changed immediately. He joined the Kenya Kwanza. And therefore, if he has to come, he has to fit in, but he has to convince people that he is now a baptized Raila Odinga. He cannot continue. He cannot continue doing the same thing. Now, William Ruto has also succeeded in destroying him locally, but now exporting the destruction to the African, front. Raila is a man who has been commanding a lot of respect. And I like the way Willis now puts it, that at a time when Raila is looking for votes, when we are just approaching elections, then Ruto allows Kizza Besigye to be abducted in the country, and some of those presidents were opposition leaders, who are being harassed, they have been detained, some of them have been in jail, And then when you do this, you still expect them to vote for you when the country that has sponsored you is committing such atrocities. I mean, it was a move that was going to openly jeopardize Raila's position to capture the seat. And I like the way they put it, because if this was coming from any other any other politician, they would have told you that, you are playing politics. Martin Oloo is not a politician. Willis Otieno is not a politician, but they're speaking the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, Raila Amolo Odinga must detach himself from William Ruto. Why? Ruto rigged Raila's election, took his victory. After taking his victory, in fact, remember William Ruto had said he's taking Raila to Bondo, atamweka kwa wheelbarrow na msafirishe. After that, Ruto killed Azimio supporters. He is the commander-in-chief of all the armed forces. Remember, when there was a problem during Ruto regime, Ruto used to tell us that the buck stops with the president. He's been put to pressure to accept that they were in that government together. But he's saying it is the government that makes the decisions. The ultimate authority is the president. And therefore, we cannot now turn back to say that we want to blame Gachagua. Let me tell you, if Gachagua was behaving in that manner, waking up very early in the morning to go to his office to plan on how to destroy Azimio, it is because William Ruto had given him the green light. As the president, if he had given Gachagua instructions not to behave, not to allow extrajudicial killings, Gachagua wouldn't have done that. And therefore is the one. Now we have forgotten and we want to sanitize him. That is one reason why William Ruto, Raila must detach himself from this association. Not only that, William Ruto even poached Raila's members of parliament. Just recently, the court had ruled that Raila is leading the majority party. William Ruto is using his authority, using Moses Wetangula, and they thwarted. They refused to obey court orders. Raila Amolo Odinga must detach. Raila Amolo Odinga must detach himself from William Samoei Ruto. When the Cherera Four stood for the truth, they were kicked away. Raila is not talking about them. So William Ruto convinces Raila to join him. Raila is not talking about the deaths of Gen Zs. Raila is not talking about the death of Azimio supporters who were killed. Raila is not talking about the Cherera Four. And then he convinces Raila to go and contest for the African Union seat. And while that is happening, he allows Kizza Besigye to be abducted. He allows that Ugandan opposition, Tanzanian opposition leader to be abducted. He talks about the war in Congo. Then he talks about Israel in a manner suggesting that he didn't care. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now or never for Raila Amolo Odinga. Willis Otieno and Martin Oloo are saying that Raila has been made to showcase something that is unlike him. The Gen Zs are now seeing him as a man who went there for self-aggrandizement, for his own benefit and his own gain. I don't know what you think, but I think if there is one person who has looked at Raila in the eye and told him, you are wrong, you are headed to the wrong direction, it is Martin and Willis. As Raila comes back, you've seen William Ruto has put a lot of effort to try and cool tempers, to try and look for some blame game somewhere. Raila must pick the bull by its horns and accept that he made a mistake and make a U-turn. I don't know what you think, but the two gentlemen, the two lawyers have injected and they have nailed it. What do you think?